Podcast 129, and I'm officially changed my name in the lower corner here. I am now officially a snakehead killer.
He's a snakehead fisherman.
I caught my first snakehead,
Look at
and
that. What, 2 weeks ago, first walleye, now a snakehead.
yeah, this fishing season has been interesting.
He's diversifying.
Yeah, usually I just like catching bass, but we purposely went out yesterday to try to catch a snakehead, and we caught officially caught one, but we had three other bites, buzzbait and frog, topwater frog, and it was fun. So now I'm officially interested in snakehead fishing.
They're spooky looking.
They are spooky looking, but the fight is nothing's more fun than a bass. But the fight was just like, I mean, it was pulling and pulling and pulling and wouldn't give up, and it was fun.
Was it toothy like a walleye? Or, I mean,
Yeah, yeah, it
was
had
it was
teeth
the
just like a
teeth
walleye.
weird? Yeah,
Hmm.
just a row of teeth.
Nope, row of teeth.
Okay,
I
okay.
didn't even touch it. I just took the needle nose pliers, hemostats, and just flipped,
Hemostats.
yeah, flipped the hook out and dropped it down. But it was, I don't know
Nice.
how long it was. It was probably, I don't know.
Oh,
Didn't
he's
measure
telling
it.
fish stories now.
Nah, look at the picture online.
well,
But
I spent the day cooking in the sun too. Uh,
I
we
know you
took
did.
we took the boy out to an air show to Westmoreland
Hmm.
County Air Show in Latrobe, PA, and the Canadian Snowbirds were there, which is like the equivalent of the Blue Angels
Hmm.
here in the states, I guess. And boy, what a show! I mean, they had all these World War II type planes, Corsairs and different things like that from the 40 from the 40s flying. Uh, some really neat stuff. It opened my eyes to a lot of things. The F-16s were amazing. Uh, well, they only really had one F-16 that they put on show, and man, the sound that comes off of one of them things as it passes you, like here where I live is very rural, and there's times where you're in the woods or even here, just here at the house or whatever. They do like these practice runs or whatever. They perform these things over the trees here. They try to, I guess, fly as low as they can and as fast as they can. And you just hear something. It almost sounds like someone driving down a gravel road. You hear something, and the next thing you know, I mean, it's gone. You
Hmm.
just see a flash go over you. They're flying, and you truly see, you know, the power behind that stuff. And I would say if anybody was in the military, uh, how intimidating these planes would be coming at you if you was fighting against them, and these planes were coming down on you, firing. Oh man, it was an eye opener. But
Hmm.
my boy's really into that World War II stuff. That's why we went. Uh, like he's like, oh, would you go again? I'm like, yeah, I might, but it's not my thing. But I mean, it was really interesting day. So I don't know if anybody's out there listening that would like that type of thing, but it was
Hmm.
it was a good day. It's a good day.
That was in where was it? Pittsburgh.
Eh, yeah, it was in Latrobe at
Mm.
Arnold Palmer Airport is what it's called. It's Westmoreland County Airport. So
Nice.
it was neat. And then they had to pause a few minutes here and there because there was real flights coming in.
Hmm.
Spirit Airlines flies in and out of there. So there was a few times that happened. Um, they had a big Apache helicopter, I think is what it was, in the opening ceremony. Took four guys all the way up. I mean, it was so sunny and hot. You can't, as far as you could see up there, you could just see a little black dot. And here that was that Apache up there. And four guys skydived out of the Apache with American flags on and smoke bombs on their feet. They would come down swirling and making smoke trails and stuff, and that's how they started the ceremony with with the Canadian anthem and the national anthem, and yeah, it was pretty neat. But
Cool.
of course, anywhere you go, you still get your rude people. You know,
Mhm.
people that didn't take their hat off for the anthem, or you know, just whatever. There's no matter where you go, there's always some of those people.
Mhm.
But it was a good day.
All
Good
right.
day
Well,
overall.
today we're gonna yap about clover, and
My
we
favorite.
yep we a guy that listens to our podcast. He contacted me a week ago or so. It might have been 2 weeks. I told you about it, and he wants consulting in New
Yeah.
Hampshire. So I
Yeah.
usually don't do consulting trips in the summer just because of the heat. Nobody wants to do it. Ticks, and it's just
Just
it's
bugs and heat.
yeah,
Yeah.
it sucks. But he's all the way up in New Hampshire. I told him I would do it, so I had there. I thought it was going to be sooner, but it's not actually till the first week of August.
Mm,
So I'll go up there then, get that done, and then I don't have nothing planned till beginning of January. But that leads us into Clover talk because this new client, um, it will probably end up having some clover, but we talked about. And this time of year, right now, like your clover should be booming.
mhm.
Even if you planted it in Mayish time frame, it should still be up and booming. Clover is slow to start, but once it gets going, get some moisture in it, get some heat, it really starts to take off. Now, how many times have you mowed clover this year so far?
um, I believe I did mow twice.
Okay, now are you waiting till it gets flowered?
Uh, the first time I did not
Hmm.
because it was a weed thing,
Hmm.
and I wanted to take all the heads off before any of them went to seed.
Hmm.
So I tried to stay ahead of the weeds that way. So I did the mowing once before. I mean, half of it was flowered out. Um, the second time was because I couldn't get to spray it. I wanted to spray it, keep ahead of the weeds, but I mowed again the second time to keep ahead of the weeds again because it rained here for a freaking month straight, like every day, monsoon type rain too. It was horrible. The river is an all-time high down here, up over the roads and stuff. Uh, so yeah, that's why I mowed twice, only because uh, not really to maintain the clover, but I was maintaining the weeds at this
Hmm.
point. So 2 weeks ago, I did get to spray the IMOX. So when I went over and looked at it the other day, like all that chickweed was brown that was in the plot.
Hmm.
Now there's still some hardy grasses and a couple of thistles that made it through, you know. But I'll spray again in the fall probably, one more time.
Hmm.
But in the
Yeah.
meantime, I will just mow.
So a lot of people ask about maintaining their clover throughout the spring and summer, and most times you can probably just mow. Other
Yeah, a lot
times
of
you
times they want to know when to mow.
Mhm.
A lot of
And
them.
other times you got to spray, and they make several sprays out there, clethodim and 2,4-DB for your broadleaves. But what's funny is you know nobody wants to give certain people, I guess, like credit for something, and
Mm,
not that we take credit for it, but a couple years ago we talked about it on here, but I also started making a lot of YouTube videos about it when there was only a select few people that were talking about it. Now
yeah,
everybody talks about it,
yeah,
and
it's a common thing.
it's IMOX,
It's on.
and if I have several videos on my channel, thousands, 100,000 views talking about IMOX. And yes, at that time, whatever it was, 3, 4 years ago, there was other people using it, but now it's everywhere. Everybody wants to know about IMOX. Just
Mhm.
like 8 years ago when I started to talk about further feeding. There was only like a couple people. And it's funny is I'll throw a name out there is Grant Woods. Back then I talked to Grant Woods personally and along with the company I was working with directly, and he was completely against further feeding. doesn't work, junk, doesn't work, don't need it, stick with no-till, blah, 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 blah. Now, all his videos, he's talking about fooler feeding.
Mm.
So it's funny how things shift, and there's
Right.
probably has money has to do with involved in all that, sponsorships and things, but fooler
Right.
feeding is a very powerful thing, tool to use on your food plots along with IMOX. Now, usually, if it's a brand new food plot, a lot of times you will have to use a chemical, you know. And for example, I planted one 3 years ago, or probably 4 years ago. No, 3 years ago. And the first year planting it, it was a maybe when it was. Maybe it was 4 years ago, but it was when we skid steered the plot out and made it bigger.
Hmm.
4 years ago, 3 years
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, I think that was probably 4.
Okay. Well, that spot, it was all pine, um,
Yeah.
overgrown area, weeds. We removed those pines out of there. I came through and I sprayed it once with Gly and 2,4-D, killed the grasses and stuff that was there,
Mhm.
disked it up, planted the clover. 2 months later, it was full of pokeweed, all kinds of junk. I came
Yeah.
through, sprayed it with IMOX. I waited approximately 3 weeks, came back with the mower, and I had a beautiful carpet of clover.
Mhm.
So IMOX does work, and I know because I know somebody's going to ask. I did not add anything to the IMOX. I didn't add a surfactant or nothing like that. I sprayed it with 9 ounces of IMOX per acre. Now, a lot of people say, "Well, Dave or Chris, how much water do you add?" Doesn't matter how much water you add, as long as the amount of water that you use covers that acre, and you have 9 ounces on there
Mm.
in that spray tank. It doesn't matter how much water. So if you mix the 9 ounces in 20 gallons of water, but you only use 10 gallons of water, you didn't put 9 ounces of IMOX on that acre. You have to go over it multiple times to put the appropriate 9 ounces per acre down. Now, if you want to get into the calibration, sure, you can do all that. I don't think you need to do that because on average, any spray tank that you buy is about 15 to 20 gallon tank, and it's usually set up. It'll usually get you about an acre.
Mm.
Now, I build my own with a manifold and a boominator nozzle, so it changes a little bit. Do I worry about the calibration? Not really. I just put 20 gallons of water in there. I'll mix it with the IMOX, or if I'm spraying 2,4-D or glyphosate, 2 quarts per acre, you know. And if I'm done at 15 gallons, I just go over it again. Like it's not that big of a deal. People always try to get into the scientific part, make it more difficult than it needs to be, just because that's how some people are, and that people want to be perfectionists. It just it doesn't. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But it's just again, it's a food plot. Like it's not that scientific. It's not that hard to grow. A monkey can do it. So um, that's just
Now,
where I'm at with it.
now you're gonna get people that's gonna say, "Oh, 9 ounces, you're wasting product, blah, blah, blah,"
Hmm.
because, if you listen to some of these big name brand guys, they tell
Hmm.
you 3 or 4
7.
ounces, you know,
Yeah.
3 or 4 ounces is needed for your on the minimum side for your grasses and things. Well,
Hmm.
I wanna smoke whatever's there.
Right.
I don't want herbicide resistance to happen. You know,
Hmm.
I wanna kill what I wanna kill. So if I waste a couple of dollars putting a couple extra ounces in, so be it.
Right.
But I want it dead, you
Hmm.
know.
Well, it's a
Uh
mistake too.
well,
People don't use enough.
I seen a lot of arguing going on online with that.
Of
Um
course.
Arguing about how much, and I'd like to throw a name out there too. Let's give credit where we think it's due. A lot of the times back when we were talking about doing that, using that product, we was contacting Chris Brackett.
Hmm.
We Chris Brackett talked about this, like, I don't know, 5 6 years ago, and everybody was like, "What? That's for ponds.
Right.
It's
Right.
controlling grasses and
Aquatics.
yeah, aquatic plants and cattails around ponds." But I don't know who come up with it, but somebody
I don't either.
obviously tried it and it worked, and Chris Brackett was using it, and,
Yeah, that's why I said there was only a select few people using it
yeah,
at
yeah,
that time, and now
for sure.
it's all over the internet.
Now it's widespread. Of course, he's done a million videos on it
Yeah, yeah.
too,
Yep.
you know? Yeah, I mean, if there's a question on Facebook, someone jumps in there, "Yeah, use iMox," you know?
Mhm.
It is a good product. I mean,
Yeah, it works. I mean, what is it, like $100 or something, $98 or something? I can't remember.
I bought the last time it fluctuates a little bit. I think the last bottle delivered to the house was like 86 bucks.
And it's a quart, right?
Yeah, it's only a quart, but
Yeah,
you can get up to like if you
5
stretch it
acres.
out, you can get 4.5 to
Yeah,
5 acres out of a bottle.
right. Yeah, so I think money-wise, it's good because, if you buy, what is it, clethodim and 2,4-DB, then you gotta get into the mixed ratios of those combined together. So you're buying 2 chemicals, trying to figure out the mixed ratios when you can just use IMOX. It's all built in to one. Now, I guess you'll contest to this too, but it is a little slow reacting. It takes a little bit
Sure.
longer. I don't think it's as powerful, if that's the right word, or if it just takes a little bit longer, but it eventually kills as long as you mix it right and you put enough down per acre, it
Yeah.
will kill what you're spraying.
Yeah, well, it depends on your heights and stuff too you have going on.
Mhm.
Because a big mistake out there too is people go out and mow
Mhm.
and then they'll go in the next day and spray.
Yeah.
Well, you just eliminated all that leafy vegetation that the spray has to land on. It
Right.
has to have area to land on and to be
Mhm.
sucked in to translocate down to the roots and kill.
Right.
So when you cut a product down and spray it right away, you've taken away that area. So the plant or the weed has to be actively growing as well for it to land on area and to be sucked in.
Mhm.
Um, a lot of people don't understand that.
Right.
They go in and just mow and spray, you know. But
I'm going keep talking, but I'm gonna
yeah,
show
I always will mow and wait a week or two for anything to rebound weed wise that I don't want and make sure that it's good and leafy. And then I will go in and spray it then. And then, uh, like you said, it is a slow reacting process. Like I said, I sprayed 2 weeks ago and all the chickweed's brown now. Um, so it's taken like a whole 2 weeks to find, to notice that it was browned out. But of
Mhm.
course, too, it depends on your weather as well. I mean,
See
you
this?
have yeah, I can see it. It's
So
up now.
that's okay. So that's I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's the clover plot I'm talking about where
Right,
we remove
right.
the trees, and that's
That's the
after
expansion.
I sprayed it and mowed it, and
Right.
that's what you're left with, a beautiful
Mhm.
clover plot. And
Yes.
then how do you get rid of that? Uh, okay, so keep going, and I'm gonna find the video before I sprayed it to show you what you're talking about with the heights, because there was
Yeah.
all kind. It looked like a jungle.
Yeah. So a lot of people want to know, can I use this IMOX too to put down a new plot? And I mean, I will tell you that you could do that. Um, the only warning is there's not a real clear um, date for a residual to be in the dirt left over after you spray. So I always recommend like 2 to 3 weeks waiting time before you
There,
replant.
there it is, right there in August. Look how weedy it is,
Yeah,
but they're still hammering it.
sure.
And then I sprayed it with IMOX and then mowed it, and then you saw what it looked like after that. So it
Yeah.
does work.
And that's not all bad stuff there either.
No.
I mean, a deer will eat 700 some different varieties of weeds and plants, and everybody wants that manicured look,
Hmm.
Uh, so I'm gonna tell people that you don't have to have the manicured look. They
Hmm.
enjoy all that other stuff too. You know,
Right. Mhm.
everybody wants that postcard picture, but look at the way they're foraging in here.
Mhm.
You know, there's
Now,
so much stuff right there.
you see the dead spot butted up against the clover, all that was trees. Like where the green is, all that was pines. It was a mess. You were there.
Yeah,
We have a video on it, and we turned it, into, um,
we
you know,
expanded a plot from 2 acres to 3 acres. There was approximately an acre there that we cleared. What he just
right.
showed in green was all pines and acidic, all needles, you know, all kind of weird stuff in there. But we made a lot of pretty plots in that place.
Mhm. Yep, for sure.
But yeah, I mean that's where a lot of our videos came from. 4 years ago. Five, go back 4 or 5 years ago and watch some of uh, our food plot videos that we each made, and you'll see some pretty darn nice plots. And we've been using IMOX all along the way. And people want to know, how'd you get those looking so nice? And
Mhm.
that's how we maintained a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, and we have other videos too where we didn't use any chemical, so, um, yeah, that's from the tree stand view.
Ooh, the lucky stand.
That wasn't the lucky stand.
That's not it.
No, that's not the lucky stand.
What is it?
That's a stand from the clover plot.
Oh,
Like, we're, like, right next to the trail where you come in.
yes, yeah. I know which one you're talking about now.
Yeah. I'm just trying to show people, like, hey, like, you can have, you know, a good clover food plot.
Sure.
Even taking it from what you see there in the woods to clover if you just do it, you know, the right way.
So let's talk about when. A lot of people want to know, when do I spray? When do I mow? Whatever. And it's best to spray um, early on when you see the weeds, but you hear that a lot. You want the weeds to be low and when they're first starting out. But see that's a catch 22 because this year was not the model for that.
Mhm.
Um, it was still cold all the way up until May. Um, we still had lots and lots of rain. I mean, I personally don't like to spray right before it's supposed to monsoon rain. Kind of seems to water down your product in my eyes.
Yeah, you
Um,
wanna go in there a few days before.
yeah, before it gets all washed away. Um, and the other thing is, if you spray too early in the season, it seems like you miss the weeds that are coming up behind that are
Mhm.
late bloomers that come out, early June or whatever. So you may have eliminated the stuff from April, May, but in June, all new brand of stuff comes up, and you kind of miss that. So it's timing is rough depending on weather.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I will spray late May, early June one time and then just maintain by mowing all year. And then, like, end of August, something like that, I will maybe spray again to make sure that I've eliminated all of that. So going into the next spring, hopefully I won't have that regeneration of all that weed coming back because a lot of them are just annuals. So you try, if you spray spring and fall, hopefully you'll eliminate all that crap for the next spring.
You also wanna
So the next year you won't struggle so bad.
Yeah, you also want a clean slate going into hunting season because
Sure.
you don't want a plot full of weeds, you want a plot full of what you planted. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you have a clover plot that has tons of weeds in it going in the fall, you're losing, whatever percentage of actual clover
Yeah.
of tonnage that you're trying to feed the deer because then weeds are going to go dormant or way before the clover's going to. So you're
Yeah.
losing valuable tonnage that you could have if you maintain the weeds or grasses
Yeah.
prior
Because
to hunting
they
season.
could shade out and stunt the good stuff that you want. They might be taking all the nutrient and moisture away. So
Mhm.
you do want to take care of them that way. Now the other thing would be mowing, timing of mowing. A lot of people
Mhm.
ask, well, you know, mow more often, mow less, mow when the flowers are white on the clover, mow when the flowers are brown. Um, I I mow a lot and I have a lot of clover, so I don't necessarily wait till the flowers are all brown, to spread that seed. But if you don't have a large clover plot and it's kind of spotty, I would wait more till the flowers are brown and ready to reproduce, because they will drop naturally. You don't have to mow them off to spread them. They will just drop and reproduce too. But
Mhm.
um, I would wait till they were a little brown if you're a little on the thin side. I have so thick and nice clover that I mow. I pick a time in between the white and the brown. When I start seeing a lot of it turn brown, then I'll just get out there and start mowing. You know, because I really don't need to fill in patches and things because it's just been so nice. This plot's been going. I switched over to mainly clover plots about 3 or 4 years ago, uh, just because spring and summer plots are just a real pain in the butt because of weeds and things, and not knowing the weather. The weather patterns the last 3 or 4 years have been horrible. Either we're in a drought or we're in a monsoon. There's like no in
Mhm.
between normal growing here in Pennsylvania. I don't know why. Um, it's just the way things are. I don't know. Um, but that seemed to be the trend. So I said, screw it, switched everything over to clover. It's easier to maintain, and clover's king. I mean, it's 365. They will dig for it in the snow. Believe it or not, I made videos about it. I have pictures of it because people said, "Oh, it goes dormant." Yeah, it goes dormant, but they'll still dig it up, and there's still all the nodules and things under the ground. Keeping it alive and ready to burst out of the dirt in the spring. Your grains in your clovers are like the things that come up first as soon as you get those warm days in February and March. So
Mhm.
they will dig for that stuff
Yeah. So, I think we hammered clover. Um,
pretty
Hopefully
much.
people have a good understanding of mowing and the herbicide use. Now, like I said, we're advocates of IMOX, but clethid, if you want to use clethodim and 2,4-DB, don't care. Use
Yeah,
whatever you can get or
yeah.
whatever. It's just IMOX is
Whatever you prefer or
easier.
can afford.
Yeah, it's just
Uh,
easier to use.
One last thing would be the fertilization that goes with clover. There's that argument out there that you don't need fertilization to grow clover. Well, I mean, clover will grow in low pH, but uh, people say you don't need it because clover makes nitrogen. Well, as we said a million times on here, the seed doesn't contain nitrogen. The plant will produce nitrogen once it matures. So you still, if it's a new fresh plot and you're planting clover seeds, we still would say add a little starter fertilizer to help that. Just
Hmm.
wanted to throw that in there because people say you don't need fertilization. Well, I would argue that. And yes, it does create nitrogen and nodules on the plants that will pump nitrogen into the ground and for future use.
Yep. All right. Well,
All right, now we beat it to death.
yep. We'll see everybody on 1:30.